Hello everyone and welcome to the Knowledge, where we are focusing on 3 excellent days at the Rowley Mile for the Cambridgeshire Meeting. That starts on Thursday and there's lots to take you through over the course of the Knowledge this time around. Alongside me to help with that is Martin Dixon. Martin, welcome along. It's a unique track, the Rowley Mile. We're going to be looking at a lot of juvenile races in particular in this episode of the Knowledge. Is there a certain type of horse you feel who's particularly suited to the tests of the Rowley Mile?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, really looking forward to the 3 days. It's always excellent racing, and we start to get that establishment of the pecking order amongst the juveniles in particular. We're at that stage of the season where the key strands of form start to come together, and we will get more of a view as to what lies at the top of the tree, sits at the top of the tree at this moment in time. And the juvenile races look like they're going to be strong races, I think, at this meeting this year. In terms of what type of horse you want, Tom, I think you need a horse with speed. I think you need a horse with a bit of professionalism about them for a 2-year-old. Not all horses handle the track on the Rowley Mile, and this year looks as if we're going to be dealing with at least good ground, possibly a little bit quicker as it's set to dry out over the 3 days as well. But not all horses handle that downhill section and into the dip necessarily as youngsters. Even some of the older horses struggle with it, that in the idiosyncrasies of Newmarket. So I think you need a horse with pace and balance and professionalism.
And we're going to look at some of the idiosyncrasies of the track now. Track facts that make it such a unique test as follows. The 10 furlong, the 1 mile 2 straight with minor undulations. The penultimate furlong is downhill and the last is uphill, and that is known, as Martin referenced it, as the dip. Races beyond the 10 furlong start on the Cesarewitch course, which turns right-handed into the straight. That's the bend there. And the wide nature of the course allows them to host large handicaps like the Cambridgeshire, the Cesarewitch, with a maximum field size of 35 runners. That's the largest flat race field sizes of the season. So 3 days of brilliant racing on the Rowley Mile. This is what they look like starting on Thursday. We kick off at 1 o'clock, we go through to 5:05. I'm going to pick out some of the features for you. We've got the Tattersall Stakes, the Group 3. It's registered as the Somerville Tattersall Stakes, over 7 furlongs at 2:45. Got the Jockey Club Rose Bowl Stakes as well, listed race over 2 miles, and then some tricky handicaps that follow that. We kick off with a maiden. We've got a couple of nurseries off the back of that opening contest. That is Thursday. Friday, the racing hots up. We have got the British EBF Rosebery Stakes, fillies and mares listed race over the mile. Princess Royal Stakes, fillies and mares Group 3 over 1.5 miles. Then the Rockfel Stakes. We'll take a look at that a little bit later on. Fillies Group 2 over 7 furlongs. And we'll also look at the Joel Stakes, Group 2 over 1 mile, 3:35. That's followed by the Godolphin Stakes, listed 1.5 mile contest. That's the 4:10. We finish up at 4:40 and it starts at 1:15 with a maiden. And then the feature racing is on Saturday. Centre stage for the juveniles in the form of the Juddmonte Royal Lodge, the Group 2 over 1 mile. We'll look at that shortly. The Juddmonte Cheveley Park Stakes, fillies Group 1 over 6, and the same trip for the Juddmonte Middle Park. We start at 1:15, we finish up with the 4:50, and the feature handicap, and the race at the meeting is named after the Bet365 Cambridgeshire handicap over 9 furlongs. That is at 3:40. A massive field charging down the Rowley Mile, and we're going to take a look at that race next. The flagship race of the meeting then is the handicap, the Cambridgeshire, and it is run over the 9 on the Rowley Mile. Let's give you some facts first of all. And the handicap, the Cambridgeshire handicap itself, race facts. It was established in 1839, the same year the first Cesarewitch was run. Thanks to Martin for getting all these stats together. If anything's wrong, please get on to him. The Cambridgeshire and the Cesarewitch make up the autumn double, which has been achieved 3 times, but not since 1885. 7 horses have won the race twice, most recent Bronze Angel. Good old Bronze Angel in 2012, 2014 for Marcus Tregonning. Leading jockey, 4 wins. Nat Flatman, got to go back to 1841 to 54. George Fordham, 1853 to 1871. It's a bit more recent as far as the leading trainer goes, and we know he targets this race, and he has done again this year. 5 wins for John Gosden, 1994 to 2019, and he won it in successive years with 18 and 19 winners, Wissahickon and Lord North. So, past winners, we will see a couple of those amongst others. We can go all the way back to 2011. Prince Johann won at a big price, 40 to 1 for John Fahey and Tom Tate. Then Buick and Tregonning combined with Bronze Angel. Louis Stewart took over for the 14 to 1 win in 2014. In between, Educate won. Johnny Murtagh, Ishmael Mohammed, 8 to 1 favourite. Just 1 or 2 favourites in there. The other one, Lord North, 9 to 2 favourite. Frankie Dettori, John Gosden. I'll keep working my way up. You've got Third Time Lucky, 14 to 1. Richard Fahey, Brian Meehan's Spark Plug. Then another big price, Dolphin Vista. First 3 home, I think, were all massive prices that day over the fast side. 50 to 1 was Dolphin Vista, then Wissahickon, then Lord North. And the most recent winner was Majestic Dawn up the near side. Paul Hannigan for Paul and Oliver Cole. Right, some trends for you. We'll go back 20 years for these. During the last 20 years, John Gosden has won the race 4 times from 20 runners. Frankie Dettori, who's ridden a couple of those, is the only multiple winning jockey, having won it twice from 10 rides. 4 favourites have won the race in 20 years. The biggest price winner was 100 to 1. Blimey, Spanish Don back in 2004. No fillies or mares won the race in the last 20 years. 25 have tried. Newbury is the most successful last time out track, producing 5 winners. And the most successful stallions are Dark Angel and Dictat, both with 2 offspring winners. I think just 2 sons of Dark Angel are entered in the race this year. Those are your 20-year trends. Right, as far as this time around goes, 2021, the Cambridgeshire, how do they bet at the moment? Well, Uncle Bryn is 4 to 1 favourite. Chichester is 9 to 1, Astro King 10 to 1, Anne Mart 11 to 1, Dance Jupiter, Fantastic Fox and Magical Morning 14 to 1, 16 to 1 and bigger the rest. Martin, we are looking at this before we know the draw and before official declarations. Uncle Bryn, though, very strong towards the top of the betting, 4 to 1 favourite, and he does look as though he's been targeted at this race. He won at Ascot on reappearance, the same race, Martin, which Lord North contested. He finished second en route to winning the race a couple of years ago. And Uncle Bryn, well, he's been off. He was considered potentially a Derby horse. This was him running in the blue ribboned trial, the Derby trial at Epsom.
Yeah, and he's a horse with a generally progressive profile through his career. He won both of his starts as a juvenile. Look at him this day at the track at Epsom, Tom. We know that not all horses handle the track at Epsom, and he's just hanging down the camber, isn't he, to his left. He went into this race just with 2 runs behind him, both as a juvenile. It was his seasonal comeback, and I think to some extent, although he was turned over as an odds-on favourite on the day, it wasn't a bad effort, and the track didn't really play to his strengths. He was too big for it, too inexperienced for it, and didn't really run up to his best form on this occasion. Now, he went to York on the back of this and he disappointed again, but they gave him a break and he was back on track, winning the handicap at Ascot last time out. From a price perspective, I think he's way too short, Tom. In terms of the form that he's actually got to earn his rating of 103, he just doesn't look like he's got strong enough form, and he's not well enough handicapped going into the race, in my opinion, to be such a short price. The Ascot race that he won, Dettori bounced him out, made all of the running on him. The overall time was quite slow. He gave him a good enterprising ride from the front that day, and he beat a horse, Walharn, who's not won for nearly 3 years, and the veteran You're Hired into 3rd place. It was quite a bunched finish. The overall time was slow, and he's going to have to do things very differently in a race like the Cambridgeshire. And we just saw him there at Epsom as well, not handling the camber at Epsom. It does bother me a little bit that he may not handle the track at Newmarket as well.
Do we have to build in the fact that John Gosden may have targeted the race with him? He's got a good recent record, he's got a very good record in it. Would that not make you trim a couple of points off whatever price you think he should be on form?
It probably would, but I think more than a couple of points has already been trimmed off. So I'm looking at it now. We're looking at it anti-post prices, essentially, before the draw's out. I fully expect him to drift. I think he'll be a bigger price than the 4 to 1 on offer. I think people will go out to try and get him, and the money will come for the bigger priced horses. You know, he's been more than well found in the anti-post market. you do have to factor all of that in. But like I say, in terms of the strength of his form at this moment in time, I don't think it's good enough to warrant being as short as he is.
And Mark would be a notable winner for Owen Burrows, one of the last horses that he'll train as a private trainer for Shadwell Estate Company. This is him finishing second at Newbury. He subsequently won at Bath and at Doncaster, both on relatively quick ground, both over the 10. So he's dropping back in trip for the Cambridgeshire, and he'll probably be back on slightly quicker ground than he encountered this day at Newbury, Martin.
Yeah, and I think fast surfaces suit this horse, actually. He was, as you say, he was beaten this day, but it was still a really good run. It was a step forward at this stage of his career, having just his 4th start this day at Newbury. And he's gone on subsequently to win at Bath on fast ground, and then on very quick ground at Doncaster at the Ledger Meeting earlier this month. He's a progressive horse. He has a good attitude. And I think the fact that he stays the 1.25 miles is probably a good thing when you're looking at the nature of the Cambridgeshire is such that you want a horse that stays the 9 furlongs fully, because we expect the pace to be strong, the race to just be a real thorough test over the 9 furlongs.
What's led to his improvement since that bit of form we've just seen?
I think it's just general progression. Lightly raced, well-bred horse, going the right way, improving. Like Uncle Bryn, I think, under the penalty that he's got to improve his form again a little bit more from the higher rating than he had at Doncaster. But he's genuine. He'll be suited by the test, and I think he's a horse with a definite each-way chance. But again, he's been very well found in the market because he's kind of got that obvious, sexy, upwardly mobile profile going into the race.
Magical Morning and Astro King contested the same race at York when last seen. It was won by Cruyff Turn, and the aforementioned pair finished 2nd and 3rd. Who would you have on side to come out on top at Newmarket? Yeah,
I really like Magical Morning. I think this is a horse himself that's very progressive. 4-year-old, he had a little bit of an in and out 3-year-old season, but mixed in with his 3-year-old season with some really strong efforts. And this year, generally, he didn't appear to handle the track at Goodwood. He's disappointed there on a couple of occasions through his career. I don't think that track suits him at Goodwood. But this day at York, he was only beaten by Cruyff Turn, who had the run of the race, dictated matters out in front. I thought was given a really good ride. He's had a progressive season himself. You can see he travelled really well, and he was edging closer all the way to the line. I think the 9 furlong trip will really suit him.
Suit Astro King as well?
It should. My problem with Astro King would be that point when he lost. I wouldn't be surprised when the decks are made to see some cheek pieces or a visor, some form of headgear go on Astro King. He just seemed to lose a little bit of focus. I don't think it was a lack of pace. I thought when he came under pressure, he wasn't that responsive to it. Ryan Moore rode him that day. I wouldn't be surprised to see some headgear go on him, and I think if they do put some headgear on him, actually I would be more interested in Astro King. I think it could help him a little bit. But Magical Morning to me brings the stronger form to the table, particularly the defeat of May Danny at Sandown earlier on in the year. That's a really good piece of form. He had lots of horses that have gone on to frank that form subsequently. He's a strong traveller. I think he'll be suited by the demands of the Rowley Mile, and I think he'll be suited by going up the extra furlong in trip at this stage as well.
Ryan Moore certainly jocked up already to ride Astro King again. We'll see if that is the case after declarations. Chichester is a horse that's dramatically shortened in the week up to the race. He was a winner at Ayr. That was just the 9 days ago. Penalised off the back of this. How good a piece of form is this for you?
Well, the runner-up, his stablemate, Platinum Card, came out and finished 4th, very creditable 4th in the Doonside Cup on the Saturday, just a couple of days after this. Now, Chichester was running this off a rating of 88, and he picks up just a £4 penalty. Look at the manner that he does it. This has earned him actually a £12 rise with the BHA, so he's up to a mark of 100, so officially going to be £8 well in. Therefore, he's a horse you've got to be interested in. He's in the form of his life. He's had a progressive campaign. This was a really smooth win. He was patiently ridden. He seemed to react well to that. The visor was on for the first. Well, it was refitted. It was the first time that he'd worn the visor for Keith Dalgleish, and he seemed that just seemed to light the fire in him really. But he's a well-bred horse, Chichester. He's had a progressive season. He's £8 well in. the wise guy's money's already gone on, really, hasn't it? You know, I think he was chopped from 33s. It's gradually been chipped away at. But of course, he's got to be a horse of interest, being so well in and obviously in the form of his life. And I think that Ayr race, like I say, with Platinum Card coming out to frank the form in listed company a couple of days later, it looks solid enough.
And we can have a look at a good few of them running in against each other. This is Lucanda finishing fourth. You've got a few others in there as well in the form of Power Estates, Good Birthday, Montatha, and I know Lucanda is one of those on your shortlist, Martin.
Yeah, and I think he has to be. He's a horse that we know already is suited by the demands of this race, because 12 months ago he came and finished a very creditable second to Majestic Dawn in the Cambridgeshire. That was off an official rating of 98, and he comes into this year's race lower in the weights. He's only got a mark of 95 coming into the race this year, so he's a few pounds lower. Look where he makes his ground on this occasion as well. He's right out wide down the middle of the track there on the flank, and I don't think that helped him a little bit. We saw that across the meeting at York on a couple of the days. The action unfolded a little bit further towards this stand side. He was stuck on the flank to make his move, and just at this point here, that starts to tell on him. The horse is closer to the stands railer finishing off. He's wilting a little bit in the last 100 yards or so, but I think he made his effort probably on the wrong part of the track. It was a sign of a return to form from him anyway after a couple of lesser runs, and so he's coming into the race well handicapped, back in form, and it looks on the back of that, understandably, that they've just saved him and laid him out to come to the Cambridgeshire again and try and go one better than last year. So the demands of the race suit him, the track's fine, he's well handicapped, and I think he's been overlooked a little bit in the market so far.
It sounds as though you're looking for horses that want a sound surface, because we're very likely to get that, and you've made it clear that the two that you're most interested in, Martin.
Yeah, I think the two I'm interested in, Magical Morning and Lucanda in particular, they're just horses with very solid, strong handicap form already through the season, and I'd prefer to look for that at this stage. I think that those strands of form have maybe just in the anti-post markets been overlooked a little bit for the more obvious unexposed ones, but actually Magical Morning and Lucanda both bring very strong handicap form this season to the table, and I think the test is one that will suit both of them.
So those are the two that you fancy. We are going to turn our attention to the juveniles on the Rowley Mile next. We turn our attention to Group 1 action now for juveniles in the form of the Middle Park. Really good looking renewal this year. We'll come to that. But as far as some race facts go for you for the Middle Park, this is the history of the race. Established in 1866, it was originally called the Middle Park Plate, open to either colts or fillies. And in 1987, the race conditions were changed to a colts-only contest. Leading horses often go on to run in the 2000 Guineas over a couple of furlongs further. The first to win both was Prince Charles, 1871, 1872. That was the horse Prince Charles. And most recently, Rodrigo de Triano, 91 and 92. Right, leading jockeys, 6 wins in the race, Danny Maher, 1901 to 1913, and Sir Gordon Richards in 33 to 53, and most recently was Lester Piggott, 67 all the way through to 82. More recently, for the leading trainer, and unsurprisingly, I suppose, given the ammunition he tends to send over and running the race, Aidan O'Brien, first in 2000, most recent in 2018, US Navy flag that year, 6 wins in total in the race. And past winners. Most recently, we had Supremacy, Earthlight in 2019, it was 10 Sovereigns in 2018, US Navy flag was 2017. Go back to the Last Lion for Joe Fanning, Mark Johnston. Shalar won in 2015, 2's on Shalar was, Frankie Dettori, John Gosden. Charming Thought was a bit of a surprise, 22 to 1 for William Buick and Charlie Appleby. A Stare for Kevin Ryan and a certain Neil Callan. We'll be talking to him very shortly. Gerald Mosse won it for Clive Cox with Reckless Abandon, another favourite, 9 to 4 favourite, and Crusade, 25 to 1. Shamie Heffernan and Aidan O'Brien. I think the biggest price, or joint biggest price in recent years, Crusade. So we saw, or we mentioned that Astaire won it for Neil Callan a good few years ago, and he also won it with Amadeus Wolf first up, so 2 wins in the race for the man that joins me now. Neil, welcome along. You're riding permanently back in the UK now, and before that Hong Kong stint you rode 2 winners of the Middle Park. Great memories there.
Yeah, good morning, Tom. Yeah, we had some good memories with Kevin, Ryan, and I throughout the years. And after winning the Middle Park twice on two very good two-year-olds.
Just for your mind, Neil, and I've actually posed a question to Martin already at the top of the programme, but what type of juvenile do you think you need to win at the Rowley Mile specifically, given the test that it provides?
Yeah, clearly, obviously, need a well-balanced start because, if they have a high cruising speed and they've got good balance, they can take you into the dip, which is most important because most of the races over 6 furlongs seem to develop at around the bushes, which is about 2.5 furlongs out. And it's at that point when the race really takes off that you need that cruising speed and the balance to be able to take you into the dip, because quite a lot of young horses that, in Middle Park, when they're lightly raced, they kind of just need them to be able to take you into the dip. Otherwise, they can fall into it and not be able to get going quick enough then up the hill to the finish line.
We saw a stare win it in 2013, and Martin and I are going to, and yourself, are going to talk about how it can pay to be up against that near side rail and on the speed as well. Now that is where you were, drawn right up against it, looking back at it now, for the majority of the race. Although there was a point, Neil, where he did seem to come off the rail a bit. Was that the track making him do that a little?
Yeah, well, no, he kind of, you could see he was kind of shying away from the rail for most of the race, but I was keen to get him just on the rail so that he would, he wasn't a free sort of going horse, but I knew by letting him lead that he would have his head up a little bit and just didn't want him over racing. So I was trying to get him over to the fence to just get him to just drop his head and relax a bit. And, he did relax for me and he settled quite well. And like I say, they kind of left me alone, so I was able to just balance him up, and you could see down to the two, he had his ears pricked, but you could see even early on he was wanting to get him away from the rail, and at the same time you're trying to keep them balanced. You don't want him drifting away, but at the same time you don't want to slow them down. So if you're too strong on trying to balance them up, you tend to slow them down. So I did open the door for Hot Streak to come through with Jamie Spencer a bit, but my fella was very tenacious, and he stuck his head down when it mattered. So
did you, Neil? Good celebration that as well. Did you want to get him back over to the rail, or did you want to get him back over to Hot Streak for company? Because he seemed to pull out a bit more when Hot Streak got to you.
Yeah, well, towards the end at Newmarket like that, the rail tends to come back out to you. When I pull my whip through to the right, it did tend to straighten him up a little bit, and he kind of did drift over to his other horse, but it wasn't intentional, but I knew when I got over there that he was going to put his head down, and he did. So he fought on very bravely. He was a very good, tough 2-year-old, and like I said, Kevin had the 1-2, and I was just glad I was on the right one.
Would it be right to say as well that he appreciated the rising ground there? He found more for coming uphill the last furlong.
Yeah, and as well, because it does rise slightly up towards the winning post, but I think it was more for the fact that he was probably a little bit lonely in front. And actually, when Jamie came to me on Hot Streak and eyeballed me a bit, that my fella actually just wanted it that little bit more, and he just put his head down and was courageous all the way to the line. So probably a middle mixture bit of everything together. But at the end of the day, Tom, you need the horse to fight for you, and my fella did.
And then go back 8 years previously, and you won it with Amadeus Wolf. Now, this was a bit different because, well, first of all, the stalls were far side, and you didn't exactly go and make it here.
No, he always loved to have something to run down, Amadeus Wolf. Very, very high-class 2-year-old. Actually, a very high-class horse he turned into. I think he wasn't really the front running type. You always just have to have something to run at. Very strong travelling type, but later on he kind of felt like he'd always get a bit further, 7. So, in that respect, having something to run at, it suited him because he could let down from a long way out. But look, he ended up being 3rd highest rated 2-year-old at that year in Europe. So, he went on to be a good 3-year-old, 4-year-old. He won a Duke of York, and he was probably a little bit of a different horse to Astaire. They were both very uncomplicated types, but I think Amadeus Wolf was just a little bit more classy.
Is there anything you can do, Neil, when you know you're going into the dip, or do you need to do anything to get the horse ready for that part of the track?
Yeah, you just got to have him balanced, like I said before. You know, Amadeus Wolf, like I said to you, was a bit better than the way Astaire was to be ridden, because he was such a high cruising type. I knew he'd be able to take me as far as I needed to go. And I think the most important thing is the balance, just to have them balanced. But you get that all through feel. And if you know your horse well, you know they're going to be able to take you to that point, but that when you do send them on, they're going to give it to you. So I think, yeah, it's most importantly, you need the balance.
2 wins for you in the race in the past, and we're going to have a look at who's likely to win the race this year. Neil's staying with us, and we'll get Martin back in and have a look at this race. So let's have a look at the 20-year trends for the Group 1 Middle Park. During this period, Aidan O'Brien has won the race 5 times from 35 runners. This is the last 20 years. Ryan Moore has never won the race, 0 from 10, only finishing placed twice. 8 favourites have won the race in the last 20 years. The biggest price winner was 25-1 Crusade back in 2011. I think that's joint with the Last Lion, same price. The Prix Morny has been a key guide to the winner of this race in previous years, and there have been no winners of the race who have not won in the previous 90 days. They're 0 from 46. The Prix Morny, a really, really good guide. Very strong form that is, because I suppose it's often the best form coming into the race. Those are the 20-year trends. So the betting for this year's race is as follows. Again, no official draw or declarations yet. Perfect Power 7-4, Dr. Zemph 9-2, Armour is 6-1, Asymmetric is 13-2, Ebro River is 15-2. Got a trio on at 8s, Liz Sail Castle, Star Go Bears Go 10-1, and bigger the rest with Bet 365. Perfect Power is 7-4, right at the top of that betting, and we can have a look at Perfect Power in action. We can't, of course, for the win over in France in the morning. We've talked about just how good a form that often is for this race. But Martin, first of all, we can have a look at him winning at Hamilton, but just talk about the horse's credentials and qualities that means he's well, for some, the most likely winner of this race.
Well, I think the most important thing is he's got the best form coming into it, Tom. He won the Prix Morny. The Morny this year looked like a strong race. He had the likes of Asymmetric and Armour, the winners of the Richmond, and the Molecomb in behind him in the Morny. And he wasn't flattered by that. He came from off the pace. He travelled well. He quickened well. He did get a clear run through, and that helped him out, which he hadn't had at Goodwood in the Richmond. He was probably a little bit unlucky with the benefit of hindsight there. But you can see that this is a horse with gears. He travels well, he can quicken, and he's got a really progressive profile, and the Morny win does set the standard coming into this year's Middle Park. Yeah,
I mean, it bolted up here. Is there anything, Neil, about a horse that you can make an assumption as to whether they will handle the Newmarket track? I mean, he, for example, he looked well balanced up. He looks very quick as well. Is there anything that suggests that he will or won't handle the Newmarket track?
No, I don't think so. Hamilton is quite a downhill at the start of those sprint races, and then it climbs very stiff for the last 4 furlongs. He looks a very well balanced colt. Just tends to like a little bit of juice in the ground for me. So you wouldn't want to drying out too much. He's obviously got gears. He comes from well off the pace every time he wins. He's got a good turn of foot, but at the same time, he's going to need a little bit of luck and running.
That for me would be the main point of concern for Perfect Power. If you were going to take a short price about him, it's the point that Neil makes about him being that hold-up horse that's going to need a lot of luck. And so often we see races develop on the Rowley Mile, and afterwards we're looking at tactics and the hard luck stories. There's just a chance that he could be one of them, and when you're being asked to take a relatively short price, that's the risk, I think.
Coming to Asymmetric, who was behind the horse in the Morny, he of course was a winner at Goodwood. Just one question to pose to you, Neil, if I can, on the fact that he's got form at the July course. Obviously completely different tracks, but is there anything about the July course which would give you confidence about a horse going to the Rowley Mile?
They're kind of similar. Like, I mean, I think the dip at the Rowley Mile is a little bit more steeper. Look, looking at the race, I think a lot of the horses have had enough runs for them to be able to be a bit more clued up running on these sort of tracks. Goodwood's the same. It's a little bit downhill and uphill at the top. But like Perfect Power, I think this asymmetric, he's a very strong traveller. He's got a very good turn of foot too. But I think the thing with him is that, like, the faster the ground, the better for him. I think he's held his form quite well. He's actually quite unlucky not to be unbeaten. I think when he was second, he was hampered and it just didn't things go wrong. And then I think, actually, to be fair, in the morning, asymmetric, he kind of quickened up a little bit too fast for Martin, and he kind of arrived at the front a little bit too early. And then it just gives Perfect Power something to shoot down very late. So, if you look at the whole field in the middle part, there's not much between them all. They all seem to be, the form is all tied around them all in one way or another. So I don't think it's all going to come down to, like Mark says, Perfect Power is going to need a little bit of luck and running. Asymmetric, if the ground quickens up, it's going to suit him more than the others. So there's not a lot between them. It's a very, very open race for me.
Asymmetric, Martin, your view of the horse based on what we saw at Goodwood there and then into Deauville?
Well, I think he was lucky to beat Perfect Power at Goodwood. You could see the nightmare trip that Perfect Power had. He switched into the middle of the track, the door shut on him, and he finished full of running. And then Perfect Power put the record straight at Deauville, didn't he? I agree with Neil that drier ground, the quicker it gets, the better it will suit asymmetric. But I feel like he's a horse that may just have peaked, and he might need that little bit of luck, or other horses to be a little bit unlucky, if you like, if he's going to come out on top. I think Deauville told us that Perfect Power is the better horse of the two.
Armour, they're interestingly having another go over 6 with him off the back of trying it a couple of starts ago, then dropping back to the minimum last time. This is Goodwood winning on soft ground up the near side. This was impressive. It
was very impressive, and you can see he's very strong through the last 100 yards of this race. He's obviously a quick horse to be winning a Malcolm, but the ground was on the easy side, and his strongest, most impressive part of the race was on that little rise to the line in the last half furlong. It was impressive from him. He's been to Doncaster, and again, he was strong at the end of his race over 5 furlongs in the Flying Childers. I just wonder if, to be at his absolute optimum, he might just prefer a bit of juice like there was this day, because he handled the conditions extremely well here. And I wonder if he was challenging on the best part of the track at this point as well. Has he not convinced you over the 6, this horse, Neil?
Yeah, I just find, especially at Newmarket, you can have a horse that can go to 6 and get away with it on a more flat, easy track. But I think at this level, when you're kind of stepping up with a question mark over the 6 furlongs at Newmarket on the Rolling Mile, you kind of need a horse that's going to get every out of the 6, even 6.5. I'd be more comfortable with a horse thinking that it may stay 7 eventually, rather than a horse thinking, can we stretch him out to 6? So I think that's just what might catch him up.
Now, a horse that has contested Group 1s before is Dr. Zemph, who finished second in the Phoenix Stakes, just ahead of Go Bears Go, just behind Ebro River as well on this occasion. Castle Star was back in 4th. How, Neil, strong do you think a piece of form this is? The Phoenix Stakes, there's the first Group 1 of the year between Britain and Ireland.
Yeah, no, I think it's pretty strong form. It's actually, since this race, they've all held form in better races. Ebro River ran a good third behind probably the 2 best 2-year-olds out at the moment, Native Trail and Port Lonsdale. They all had their chance. They all ran up the form, I think. So, and they're all the same horses running in the same race here. So, look, I think it's going to come down to I'm not sure which side the stalls are going to be on for Newmarket, but it's all going to come down to who leads, the pace, luck and running, what way the ground ends up. It's going to come down to tactics, I think.
We're thinking, I'll just jump in, I think stand side, and therefore do you think there's an advantage to being on the rail, and do you think that's where they'll try and get, Neil?
If the stalls are there, it would seem silly not to. If you were on one of the leading fancies and you were an on-pace runner, it'd be a no-brainer to just go up the fence and stack them up and make them have to come round you. So this is why I say, like a Stair, he wasn't the best horse in the race, I didn't think, but because he jumped good and he got to the rail and he was there and they left him alone, he was able to accelerate down the hill first. Whereas some horses that when you do accelerate first down the hill, some horses get a little bit cut out and they just take a little bit longer for them to kind of get their foot and get balanced. Therefore, when you're up the hill and you've pinched that 2 lengths, it's kind of hard to grab it back towards the end. So, yeah, it just depends on who draws where. And, if there's an on-pace, one of those decent horses that are on-pace runners like Ebro River, who is very uncomplicated. If he got up that stands fence and he was left alone in front, he could sway his way.
Astaire, he may not be the best horse in the race, Neil, but I'm going to say it for you. You got the best ride. that's what did it.
Thank you, Tom.
There you go. What about that Irish form, Martin?
Solid. I quite like Go Bears Go at the prices as we're looking at them now. I think Perfect Power is the form horse, and if he gets a clear run, he looks the horse to beat to me. I think he's probably the best horse in the race. But you've got to, when you're thinking about a bet, you've got to think about that potential for him to meet a little bit of trouble in the race, to become a little bit messy, which it might do. Go Bears Go, only just beaten ahead by him at Ascot earlier on in the season, so his form ties in with him. He's kept going the right way since. I felt he was just trapped a little bit down the middle of the track, whereas the rail might have been advantaged a little bit at the Curragh. He's quick early, so he's not going to be one of those horses that needs luck necessarily. He's got early speed and he's very, very genuine as well. So Go Bears Go, I think, will run a big race in the Middle Park like he has done all season.
Go Bears Go for you. And Neil, I know you've mentioned that we don't know exactly where they're going to be drawn or the final field, but who do you think at this stage is the most likely winner?
Well, obviously, Perfect Power is a favourite for a reason. He's a very good horse, but I just feel like asymmetric. With the way the weather is at the moment, I think it's going to be good, maybe the quick side of good. And if it does turn out like that, and with the amount of speed in the race, I think asymmetric could be the one.
Great stuff, asymmetric for you off the back of that good run in France and a win at Goodwood prior to that. Neil, thanks very much. Enlightening stuff from you as ever. And we will turn our attention, just Martin and I, next to the Cheveley Park. Here we go then, Cheveley Park. Let's set you up with some race facts. Established in 1899, it's a Group 1 contest run over a straight 6 furlongs for 2-year-old fillies. Leading horses often go on to run in the 1,000 guineas. The first to win both was Pretty Polly back at the start of the 20th century. Most recently Special Duty in 2009 and then went on to the Guineas in 2010. The leading jockey in 9 wins, Sir Gordon Richards, 1928 to 53. And leading trainer, more recently, 4 wins, well, not initially, Alec Taylor Jr., 1908 to 24, but then cricket head Marek in 1982 all the way through to 2009. Past winners for you. We saw Alcohol Free take the race. She did go on to contest the Guineas. 2020, 7-2, Oisin Murphy, Andrew Balding. Mill Isle won from off the pace up the rail, 16-1, Shane Foley, Jessica Harrington. Fairyland 6-1 for Donica O'Brien and Aidan O'Brien. That was the last of a quickfire treble for him. Clemmy and Brave Anna had taken it previously. The first of those at 25-1. Will Buick and Mark Johnson combined with Lumiere, 100-30 favourite back in 2015. Tiggy Wiggy won it, 6-4 favourite. That was the year after Vorder had gone off the 11-8 favourite. The French Raider in 2013. Roche Du Queen in 2012. And Jay Lyons and Johnny Murtagh teamed up with Lightning Pearl in 2011 at 3-1. 20-year trends for you. During the last 20 years, Aidan O'Brien has won it 3 times for 15 runners. They were in succession. The biggest price winner in the last 20 years was in 2004, Magical Romance, at a whopping 40-1. 8 favourites have won the race. Most successful stallions are Invincible Spirit and Kodiak, both with 2 offspring winners. I think we've just got 1 Kodiak entered this year. Right, betting. And at the top of the betting, well, we saw Jay Lyons took it 10 years ago. Sacred Bridge is 7-4. Sandrine is 4-1. Zane Claudette is 4-1. Flotus is 8-1. And then it is 10-1. Bigger the rest. We'll start with the Irish form and with Sacred Bridge. Are you of the opinion that this success, the 4th on the bounce for Sacred Bridge when winning the Hyder Family Stables Ramtower Stakes, is the best form on offer, Martin?
I am. Yeah, this is a very good filly, I think. She really impressed me this day. I think when she won the sales race at Naas on her previous start, I was of the opinion that she was maybe ready to step up to 7 furlongs in line with her pedigree. She's a full sister to Viadera, who is now plying her trade in America, and she's a multiple graded winner in America over a mile. So I was of the opinion at Naas that maybe this was a filly ready for a step up in trip, but look at the way that she goes about this. She goes through the race with real swagger, travels to the front on the bridle, and then she's even more impressive when she's given a tap furlong out. She accelerates for that little bit of pressure that was applied and very quickly asserts her authority. She's a strong sayer at 6 furlongs, but she's also a strong traveller, Tom. I think she's a filly that we saw that caption saying special duty, won this in 2009 before going on to Guinea's success. I think she was the last filly to double up. I think this could be a filly that does the same potentially. She's very, very good, I think.
What struck me watching that back was how professional she was. And also, I suppose more concerning for the rest of the field is how easily she did it. Now, she probably won't be allowed to do quite that up into Group 1 company, but how much more under the bonnet do you think there was there?
I think I just think it's class ability ultimately shining through, the way that she's able to travel and quicken and accelerate. And like I say, as soon as the button was pushed, as soon as she was asked for more, she was very responsive to it. And I think she'll relish the climb to the line at Newmarket as well, but that form to me sets the standard, and I do think she'll be very, very hard to beat. She's a filly with a lot of tactical pace. She's jumps out the stalls well. She's, you know, there doesn't seem to be any complications with her. So we talked about perfect power with an eye on the middle park. Yes, I think he's the best horse in the race probably, but I can envisage a scenario where he ends up getting into a little bit of bother through the race, whereas I think this filly just has the quality to be able to get herself out of pockets, really. So I think she's a serious talent.
David Probert will ride Sandrine. She is 3 from 4, the sole defeat coming in the Lauder. Prior to that, she'd won the Duchess of Cambridge, and David was on Luck on Sunday recently, reflecting first on that success.
She was excellent this day. I mean, she had a nice pace to follow against. The kind of the packed edges off towards the stand side rail, and I've got left out on the wing, and it's quite difficult for especially a 2-year-old filly making ground on the outside without passing horses, and she got left alone a little bit, but really did quicken well up the hill there at the July course, and I felt as though she was very professional and you know, and quickened so much better on that ground.
Yeah. And then York, on the face of it, people look back at that race and they think, okay, well, she's got beaten. It was slightly disappointing because what she'd done in her 2 previous races, but she's given weight away to a very, very good horse. And the fact is that, you know, slightly marooned where things unfolded. What were your thoughts about immediately in the aftermath, and then once the dust had settled, as to how good that performance was?
Obviously, I was gutted because you know, I know she's very talented, but you know, just looking back at it, she had to carry the £5 penalty, and at a very sharp track also, and she went into the gates very early that day, and she just got her head. She was just bobbing a little bit, and it's quite important at a sharp track like York to get away quite well, and she just missed it a fraction, probably a length or so. But I was always 2 or 3 positions further back than I wanted to be, and when I had to make my move, I had to switch right around the horses, and you know, take nothing away from the winner. He had a real good run through it, and he had 2 lengths of me going down to the furlong pole and held me well at the line. But you know, I just think different circumstances, she would have just been a bit more competitive. Yes.
It's interesting to hear you use the word sharp and being ready for that, because the impression that you get from her is that she'll get further, and that maybe she might be a 1,000 guineas filly. What do you think?
Definitely. She's very relaxed in her races. She can switch off quite easily in behind horses, and she feels as though every time she's run, she's galloped out so well after the line. So I do believe she'll mature quite well as a 3-year-old, and physically she looked like she will come on a ton for it also. So no, I do believe that she will stay further.
So we started that clip with David Probert's thoughts on this performance when finishing ahead of Desert Dreamer and Flotus. What did you make of this performance?
Yeah, it was very likeable, wasn't it? She's a really honest filly with a good attitude, and I think we see that when she hits the rising ground the last furlong and a half, she is very strong at the end of this race, and
the words likeable and honest tell me that you don't think she's going to go and win the Cheveley Park. You've told me everything I need to know.
I ultimately don't think she's as good as Sacred Bridge. I don't think she's as quick. I don't think she's, essentially it's about ability. I don't think she's as good as Sacred Bridge, but, and I also feel that she's more, although I think Sacred Bridge will definitely stay 7 furlongs and probably a mile next year, I think that this is a filly that is probably more ready for 7 furlongs now than perhaps Sacred Bridge is. But look, she is very genuine. She's got a strong level of form. She's held her form really well all the way through the season as well, and obviously she's a £3 better off as well with Zane Claudette compared to this day at York.
So who will come out on top for the rematch?
Tight. I wouldn't. I think Zane Claudette's got a lot of early pace, so we talked about that being quite important at Newmarket, and the draw will obviously have a factor, like it will, I suspect, over the course of the 3 days as well. If there's a scenario where Zane Claudette has a draw quite near to a rail and she's able to bounce out and use her early speed that she showed here at York, then I could see her holding Sandrine potentially. But I ultimately don't feel like there's an awful lot between the two of them. Both of them have been progressive fillies through the season, and both of them are very genuine.
She didn't look, I didn't think, Sandrine, she didn't look as happy there. I don't know why, or it wasn't as professional as it was on the previous start that we've just seen.
I think
she never looked like she was going to go and win that race.
No, I think it's pace. I think I said at the time that I felt like she was ready for 7 furlongs, and I would stand by that. So I think on the July course, although she was caught on the wing, she had clear sailing right down the outside, and when David was asking her, she was able to really get rolling because there was nothing in her way. York was maybe a little bit of a rougher race, wasn't it? She was, but whereas I can see Sacred Bridge just going through the race pretty much on the bridle, and Colin Keane being able to put her through any gap that there is to go through, and she'll go. I think Sandrine might be a little bit more reliant on having to get into her full stride and get rolling, if you like, and that wasn't the case at York. She ran very well, but like I say, I think she's a filly that maybe now is ready for 7 furlongs, and it might just happen a little bit too quick for her in a Group 1. In a deeper race than the Duchess of Cambridge on that downhill section of the track. I can just see her getting herself into a little bit of bother and maybe getting outpaced.
You think that Joe Lansford is going to win, don't you?
I do. I think she'll win comfortably.
Is there anything draw-wise, ground, anything that would doubt your or dent your confidence?
Not really, because I mean, obviously it can do, can't it? Like as the week develops, if we're seeing everything hard up the rail and there's a big bias, then maybe enthusiasm could be knocked a little bit. But on a level playing field, I think she's a filly with enough pace and enough quality and enough of a turn of foot really to get herself out of situations. So I think she's the best filly in the field, and I think she'll win the Cheveley Park.
We will turn our attention to the Royal Lodge next. Past winners then of the Royal Lodge. 2020 new mandate took it 9-4 favourite Frankie Dettori and Rafe Beckett. Other winning favourites, Best of Days, Foundation and Berkshire. Royal Dornoch is the biggest price winner in the last 10 years, 16-1 for Wayne Lorden and Aidan O'Brien, who won it the previous year with Mohawk. Roaring Lion took it in 2017. Undoubtedly the best recent winner of the race, Oisin Murphy and John Gosden. We've got Elm Park in there, and Jarrett Zaney and Andrew Balding, who did go on to contest a derby, as did Roaring Lion. Berkshire Steeler Daddy Longlegs took it in 2011, 11-4 for Colm O'Donoghue and Aidan O'Brien. 20-year trends. During the last 20 years, Aidan O'Brien has won it 6 times from 29 runners. Other multiple winning trainers include John Gosden with 4 and Mark Johnston with 2 winners. With wins, the biggest price winner was 16-1 shot Royal Dornoch, as I mentioned, 2019. 7 favourites have won the race. And the most successful stallions are Galileo, who has 2 entered in the race this year, and Monger, both with 2 offspring winners. Those are your 20-year trends of the Royal Lodge Stakes. Right, betting this year is headed by Masakela, who is by first season sire El Kabir. It's having a decent enough time at 5-2. Corobus is 7-2. Royal Patronage is 4-1. Bluegrass 8-1. Half at 8-1. Luxembourg 8-1. Nines and bigger the rest. And we'll start with Masakela, who's progressed nicely. The Newmarket form looks strong when finishing a short head second in the Superlative to Native Trail. And this was the horse winning from Bayside Boy, also strong form when dropped to Listed Company at Newbury, Martin.
Yeah, I think the Newmarket run was probably the better rating and his best piece of form so far for Masekela, but obviously Bayside Boy coming out and winning the Champagne Stakes is a boost. He did have the run of the race this day, didn't he? William Buick dictated quite a slow gallop. I think that worked against Bayside Boy a little bit, but in fairness to Masekela, he gets headed and he does battle back for more, and the impression ultimately on this occasion was that he's ready for a mile, and he's granted that this Saturday.
El Kabir, who was notably in the States a 7 furlong a mile dirt winner, he has had a pretty good start with the juveniles, but this horse on the dam side suggests that a little bit further shouldn't be a problem. A bit further in time, anyway, developing into perhaps a middle distance.
Yeah,
horse.
I think he looks ready for a mile now. I think he's going to see out a mile well as a 2-year-old, so there's potential for him to stay a little bit further still. We saw how good an attitude he's got there, didn't we, to battle back and collar Bayside Boy. Like I say, you've got to factor in that he dictated a slow gallop, so there's maybe an element of him having saved a little bit, and Bayside Boy had rushed up a little bit and maybe used his steam to just briefly get to the front. But ultimately, he's a likeable horse and he's got a good level of form.
Corobus has had just the one go, and it was a winning one. You've talked about experience counting for a bit when you go up in grade on the Rowley Mile. What is it you like about this horse?
Yeah, this is a horse that just struck me as being having stacks of potential, really. The market spoke for him beforehand, which I thought was interesting in itself when you judge it with the powerful connections and the fact that the Queen's horse there on the outside, the Grey Saga, came into this race with experience behind him and a promising run on his debut, a colt for John Gosden. But look at the way that Corobus deals with him. He travels all over him, really, and it's all hands and heels. You'll notice just William Buick really he's just slapping the horse down the shoulder a little bit, but nothing more than that. He never has to get serious with him for him to assert his authority. Looks just on the pictures, I wasn't at Newmarket that day, but he does look a big, powerful type that I expect to improve with that run behind him. He handled the nature of the July course well enough for me to think that the Rowley Mile will be fine for him as well. And I think he's, that form itself has taken a boost with Saga going on to win at Ascot as well. He looks a promising type, but really Corobus was just too good for him that day, and I think he was value for winning by a good bit further than he did.
Do you know what I want Corobus to do? I want him to go to Dubai and go down the dirt route there.
Do you?
And then on to the States. Yeah.
Reason being?
Well, he's bred for it. He's a Dubawi, Dam's half-sister to Thunder Snow, who tried to go that route.
That's right, yeah, it's the Thunder Snow family. Yeah. The Dam herself was a very good 2-year-old. She won the Oh So Sharp at the back end of her 2-year-old season. So again, he's very well bred, which adds to his potential. But I really liked the way that it was all hands and heels that he asserted for at Newmarket, and I think he beat a pretty good horse in second as well.
Now, he was very well supported, even money favourite for that debut. A horse that was friendless in the betting for his last time out win was Royal Patronage. Went off at 25-1, outsider of the field at York in the Acomb Stakes. You had the likes of Eraz, Noble Truth, Dubawi Legend, Imperial Fighter, who were much stronger in the betting, or more fancies, I should say. But he was well on top, the winner.
He was, and the time was pretty good as well. He recorded a time figure of 107 with time form here at York, so it wasn't a case of him necessarily having it all his own way, dictating. It gives a little bit more substance to it. There was still just a gut feeling on the day that other horses underperformed. Other horses didn't bring their A game to the table that made this quite as strong a race as it could have been on the day. But like I say, the time does back up what he achieved.
Noble Truth has won a listed race since.
He has, yeah. I mean, I still don't feel like he gave his running. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. On the face of it, you think, he's could be a fair price for Royal Patronage coming into this. But
he could. You could argue he's got the best form.
Yeah.
I think there's just something about the Acomb that, for me, just doesn't stack. I think it is just the fact that those horses that I was expecting something from on the day didn't deliver, and it left me feeling a little bit cold about it. But as you said, Noble Truth has backed it up, but I still don't think he gave his running at York. So I want to see him do it again, essentially.
Yeah.
The mile should suit him, shouldn't it?
Yeah, should do. Completely see where you're coming from. The horse in there that has won over the mile is Corobus. That's the horse you think you want to have on side?
Yeah, I think he's got the most potential of the field. He needs to improve a little bit, but I think that Newmarket race was probably quite hot. The two horses that pulled clear, Saga going on to win at Ascot in good style. He looks like he could be smart, but Corobus on debut was too good for him. And like I said, it was the race didn't get to the bottom of him for me. So I think he's a colt when you consider the pedigree element as well. He's damn winning the Oh So Sharp. He's a Dubawi. I think there's a lot more to come, and he might just be able to take this step up in class in his stride.
Right, we're continuing with our look at the juveniles over the 3 days of the Cambridgeshire Meeting, and we'll turn our attention to the Rockfel on Friday next. Isabella Giles took the Rockfel last year. Adam Kirby, Clive Cox. Dyer won the 11-8 favourite, William Buick, Roger Varin in 2019. The other winning favourite in the last 10 was Lucida for Kevin Manning and Jim Bolger. Frankie Dettori won it on Spainburg, then Julia Capulet in 16 and 17. The year before, Ryan Moore and Aidan O'Brien teamed up with Just Wonderful. They won back in 2011 as well, with Wading before Just the Judge, Al Fakir. And the one I haven't mentioned is Promising Run. 20-year trends for the Rockfel next. Both Aidan O'Brien and Mick Shannon have won the race 3 times. Ryan Moore has won the race 3 times and placed on 4 other occasions from 14 rides. Music Show is the biggest price winner at 25-1 back in 2009. 4 favourites have won the race in the last 20 years. And no horse has backed up a run at Newmarket with a win in the Rockfel Stakes. They're 0 from 36. Right, these are your decorations this year. 10 go. Cachet under James Doyle. Femme Friendlies, drawn 1, Callum Shepherd. Girl on Film, Frankie Dettori. Hello You, Ross O'Ryan. Jumbly, Holly Doyle. Cowida, Andrea Azzani. Majestic Glory, Ryan Moore. Oscula is on the other wing. William Buick, Marco Gianni, Romantic Time, Sunstrike, Oisin Murphy. And I say wing because I'm reading the stalls are in the centre here.
Yeah, they are, aren't they? And you'd expect Oscula from stall 10, I think, to be most likely to push forward and make the running in that field.
Yeah, let's have a look at a bit of form then, and we will start with this performance from Sunstrike, finishing 4th. The race is won by Majestic Glory. This was back 48 days ago. What do you make of Sunstrike having another go then? It's obviously switching to the Roly Mile, but having another go over this distance.
Yeah, look, she's just got more to do, hasn't she? She's got more to find. She's obviously held by Majestic Glory on this form, so she's got to improve. But look at the way that Majestic Glory goes through this gap on the inside. It threatens to go wrong for her at this point of the race. She's short of room. She has to scrap for a little bit of daylight, but I love the filly's attitude when she almost barges her way slightly into the clear, nudges her way into the clear anyway, and she doesn't flinch. She very quickly picks up once she is in the clear to quicken up and essentially assert at that point, and then she keeps going out in front. The second horse, Wild Beauty, we've seen come out and win the Grade 1 in Canada at the weekend, so the form has got a recent boost, and she's always holding on that last 100 yards. So it was a good performance, a likeable performance, and she's a very progressive filly. She's just improved with every single run this season, and we've already seen that she's got pace, but she sees out her races over 7 furlongs really well.
And she'll carry the colours of Mrs. Doreen Tabor for the race and be ridden by Ryan Moore. Yeah,
she's been obviously purchased privately subsequent to that Sweet Solera win, and you can see why. She's a Frankel filly, she's very well bred, she's got the scope to train on physically, she's got the pedigree to really train on, and she should stretch out. Although she's won over 6 furlongs, she should be able to stretch out to a mile and maybe even further next year.
The Rothschild colours will be carried by Jumbly, as was the case for the Kempton win last time out. This was just back in novice company. Safi Osborne was on board, Holly Doyle taking over. You can see she's far side at this stage, daughter of Glen Eagles. This will be a big step up.
It will. This was smooth though, wasn't it, this Kempton win? She obviously only has the 3 rivals to beat. She was also, the penalty that she carried was offset by Safi Osborne taking £5 off her back here as well. But she's just in a league of her own in this field. She very quickly quickens up there, approaching the furlong pole, and the race is in the bag. Now she beats a filly called Siamsa, who we haven't seen subsequently. The 3rd horse, Brazilian Beach, has had 5 starts now, and subsequent to this has finished 10th of 11 at Newcastle and finished well beaten. So I think the form is suspect, but she wins in a hat canter, and she's a filly out of the Group 1 winner Thistlebird as well, Tom. So she's certainly bred to be very good, but it's going to be a lot more difficult for her. She needs to improve her form significantly. It's sort of much more potential over what she's achieved so far, I think, in the case of Jumbly.
And the other filly right up there in the betting is Girl on Film, who's very lightly raced, 1 from 1 so far.
Yeah, she won a restricted novice. I quite liked her. She's I saw her in the paddock on the July course when she made a winning debut. She was a little bit green, she was a bit starey before the race, but she was a good sort physically. But it was a restricted novice contest. I don't think the form is all that strong generally. So, you know, her inexperience stepping up to this company could just count against her. I do think Majestic Glory ticks a lot of boxes, really. You know, she's got an improving profile through her career so far. That she's got a great attitude, she's got plenty of experience, and ultimately the Sweet Solera win, with Wild Beauty having come out to frank that, does set a good standard.
Majestic Glory for Martin then in the Rockfel, the featured juvenile race on Friday. Last race we're going to look at then in this episode of The Knowledge is the Joel Stakes. Past winners are as follows. Cameco took it last year, 85-40, Oshie Murphy, Andrew Balding, and that rider won it the previous year with Ben Battle in a brilliant performance. He was subsequently beaten in 2020. Mustachary in 2018 beat the bank in 2017. Oshie Murphy's got a really good recent record in it. Ryan Moore won it 2 years on the bounce with Cougar Mountain and Time Test. Custom Cut won it for Danny Tadab and David O'Mara in 2014. Mike de Kock's Soft Falling Rain in 2013, 13-8 favourite. And Penitent and Ransom note the other two winners in the last 10. 20-year trends for the race are as follows. Both Sybin Soror and Sir Michael Stout have won it 3 times. Ryan Moore has won the race 3 times and placed on 8 other occasions from 14 rides. No female horse has won this race from 12 goes. Biggest price winner is 25-1, Splendid Era. That was back in 2003. 8 favourites in the last 20 years have won the race, 40% of them. Doncaster is the most successful last time out track. It's produced 5 winners. So we know who's going to post. 8 of them. Ben Battle running the race for the 3rd successive year. Accidental Agent, Pogo, Sabuska, Queen Supreme, Lanacash, Master of the Seas, and Perotto. Little asterisk with Perotto, who at the time of recording this is due to run at Goodwood today. Right. Let's start with Master of the Seas, who does head the betting, unsurprisingly, is a course and distance winner from winning the Craven and contested the Guineas subsequently when finishing 2nd. He then wrenched a joint and missed Ascot. They were hoping Martin to get him back for Goodwood. That hasn't been the case, so he is turning up here with a 146-day absence behind him.
Yeah, this was a big effort, wasn't it? I thought he shaped like the best horse in the 2000 Guineas this year. Look at the way that he quickens up, passes the whole field down the far flank, and I think ultimately that effort that he'd made to make a big move towards the head of affairs, maybe even just edging to the front briefly, possibly, just told on him a little bit late on. And Poetic Flare, we know, a strong stayer at a mile, just sees it out that little bit better. But it was a big effort from Master of the Seas, and one where he flashed a little bit of brilliance, didn't he, mid-race with how
I've forgotten how close it was.
Yeah, it was a fantastic race, wasn't it?
He was basically in front. It's because it says short head, but that doesn't. I don't think that tells the full story.
No, and he wasn't. Look, he'd made that big move. He was sustaining it, but ultimately he was just beaten by a slightly stronger stayer in Poetic Flare on the day. But really good performance from him. Like I say, they flashed a little bit of brilliance with how he got into the race far side. In that sort of form, he's the horse to beat, I think. Nice comeback race for him in Group 2 company. And it's just a little bit off-putting at a short price. He's had an injury. It's his first start back. There's a long road ahead for him. There'll be some bigger targets for him.
Breeders' Cup, I think.
No doubt, exactly. You know, so it's all sort of stepping towards other things, isn't it, for him? He can be a little bit keen as well, so if there's not much pace on, you know, he can sometimes over race. When he won the Craven earlier on in the season, I thought he needed a very good ride from William Buick to get relaxed early on and then find the gaps at the right time. So he can be a little bit like that, but he's got loads of ability.
And that Craven performance came with the hood on, which they retained for the Guineas, and they retained here. Ben Battle has put up 2 differing performances, I suppose, in this race. A couple of years ago, unreal. A brilliant performance on the clock, and then subsequently he went on to be a bit disappointing, I thought, in the race last year. And then when last seen off the back of a big absence at Goodwood, he finished 2nd to Lavender's Blue.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this horse twice since February 2020. In fact, we've we've seen him in the UK on both occasions, and he's been beaten as favourite on both occasions, last year in this very race and then here in the Celebration Mile. And I think the evidence is mounting. I thought this day that if Ben Battle was as good as he was, he should have won. I know he'd been off the track for a long time, but he's produced some fabulous performances fresh in the past. He was very strong in the market. Saeed bin Saro's horses were in really good form at the time as well. I still just felt like it was a little bit disappointing that he got beat. He had every chance the way the race was run, and it wouldn't be surprising if, as a 7-year-old, he maybe just was 7 or 8 pounds inferior to the horse that he was when he won this race a couple of years ago in devastating style. So I'd have wanted to see him really hit the line hard and finish off the race a little bit better at Goodwood, to be convinced that he retained all of his ability. And
if you look at some of his engagements in the past, going out, winning on the dirt out in Dubai, trying to be the Thunder stand-in, if you like, and he was there on merit as well. Then going out to Saudi, running a big race on the dirt there, missing the Dubai World Cup was cancelled. But I mean, he's danced a few dances, hasn't he?
He's been a fabulous horse, and he's obviously still got more than enough ability to be very competitive. But I just think that maybe his very best days are possibly just a little bit behind him. Clearly there's been an issue or two along the way for us not to have seen him very often over the last 18 months or so, and perhaps that's just taken its toll a little bit. But it was a good run at Goodwood, but I just wouldn't buy into the fact that he needed the race. I'm not sure that he'll step forward dramatically from it. Like I say, he's got a good record fresh in the past. When a horse has been off the track for a while with a few issues, I'm sure for a big race like the Celebration Mile, they'd have been keen to have him pretty much spot on for it.
Who do you like and why?
I like Lanakash. I think it's an open race and looking for something at a slightly bigger price. But Lanakash stepping up to a mile, I've thought all season like he wanted to go up to a mile. He was second in the Hungerford, running on all the way to the line. The race at Doncaster last time out was a little bit muddling. And again, I felt like he had more to give at the finish. So I think coming up to a mile for the first time could bring about some improvement from Lanakash, who's still lightly raced.
Yeah, Lanakash, who is third in the betting, as things stand for Roger Varian and Jim Crowley. Right, an overview then of the meeting. A couple of things to tie up. So conditions-wise, we're expecting it to be pretty good ground. It's easy ground, as Neil had said, Neil Callan earlier on. Good to soft at the moment, but there is a decent forecast.
Yeah, there is. I mean, they had 52 mils of rain, I think it was, last week. It's been mainly dry in the last couple of days. Possible shower, light shower on Thursday morning is forecast. But aside from that, it looks like it's going to be quite warm, getting up towards 20 degrees, maybe a little bit warmer over the course of the 3 days, and a largely dry forecast. So like you say, I would imagine we're going to be starting the meeting on good ground, Tom. And if anything, over the 3 days, it may just dry out a little bit as well. So good, maybe the quicker side of good by Friday, Saturday.
And what they've often done at the meeting in the past is they've mixed up which side the stalls are to keep fresh ground. We've got centre now for all races, which I think for reasons of avoiding any trouble in the run, that's no bad thing, is it?
No, I think it makes for fairer races. It's not to say that they won't come. Some of the jockeys may decide to move across towards the stands rail or far rail potentially anyway. But if they stay as one group down the middle of the track, it does make for a fairer all-round race and less hard luck stories essentially, which is good, and it's what you want to see in your top level races.
I'll just caveat that with the middle park where you've got we don't know how many we're going to have. We've got 14 and 16 and 10. I mean, if you end up having a sort of 10 runner field or slightly bigger, you don't want two groups, do you?
No.
And we could get that, conceivably.
We could, but hopefully the race is one down the middle of the track and we learn who the best horse is. We don't want to be coming out of our Group 1 races talking about how important the tactics were and that X, Y or Z bagged the rail and was seen to max effect. So,
I think what we've seen, certainly a few years ago when Milisle had won the Cheveley Park, we'd seen the races preceding that, there was a rush for the rail, then they went too hard on the rail. So I think I agree for reasons of it being a fairer racing. Does it change your view perhaps on Perfect Power? Does it help him?
It does help him a little bit. It does help him, but he's priced up accordingly. I think he's a very good horse at 7-4 at the top of the market. A few days before the race, it is what it says on the tin. I think, like I say, I think Go Bears Go could give him a race at least, like he did at Ascot earlier on in the season. But probably the horse I'm most looking forward to seeing over the 3 days is Sacred Bridge. I think she could be really special, and I'm hoping that she can retain that unbeaten record.
Yeah, I was going to finish with that, and you've done it perfectly. Beautiful stuff. Martin, thank you very much. As ever, that is it for the Knowledge, this instalment of the Knowledge, looking at those 3 fantastic days of the Cambridgeshire Meeting on the Rowley Mile. Bye-bye.